and welcome to this week's edition of Breeding to Win. I'm flying solo this evening with both Grant and Julie away on well-deserved breaks, and I hope they're having a fabulous time. As you can see, the weather's very blustery here in Cape Town and the waves are crashing behind me, but we do have a fantastic show for you in store tonight with lots going on and lots of interesting inserts. The Breeding to Win team took time out to travel to Claverflay Stud, where we caught up with Grant Pritchard Gordon, or otherwise known as Badger Pritchard Gordon from Badger's Bloodstock. He was part of the team doing the inspections for this year's Cape Premier yearling sale, and it was a very interesting interview indeed. We also caught up with Adrian Todd, who filled us in with what's going on with the import and export protocols in South Africa, and that's brought to us by Global Logistics. We also feature another Freeman stallion, and tonight we have Twice Over. We also have a look at what's happening with Stallion Royal Mo, who's standing out at Claverflay Stud, and get an update on him. And finally, we have our foal of the week, which has been lots of fun receiving all these wonderful pictures, and I hope you'll all be sending me a lot more for next week as well. Without further ado, we'll take you into our first interview of the evening with Badger Pritchard Gordon at Claverflay Stud. The CTS Cape Premier Yearling Sale will be held at the Convention Centre on the 23rd and 24th of January 2019. It's been moved a little bit closer to the Met, so it's looking to be a very festive time for visitors and future buyers. Now, we've also got a very, very special guest in South Africa this year who's helping with the inspections, and that is Grant Pritchard Gordon from Badger's Bloodstock in the UK. Grant, welcome on the show. It's good to have you here.
Thank you. Everyone all around the country is getting to know me as Badger, so if you say Grant, there'll be a lot of breeders who are going to say, well, who's Grant? We only saw Badger.
Well, Badger, it's lovely to have you here, and you're a regular in South Africa anyway.
Yes, I've been down quite a few times, probably from about 1980, and then probably from about 2000 onwards a few times as well. So I've done the sales. I've done a lot of the area around here. Here is as far as I've got, but I've never been as far up through Sirius, up to Somerset West, up into no, not Somerset, Beaufort West, up into the Karoo, which is fabulous, and then we've been down into the Eastern Cape and back here again. It's been wonderful.
Well, you're very well known internationally, and obviously very, very well known by our breeders here as well.
Well, I've seen a lot of friends from a long time ago, but also met some lovely other people. And what's so good is, what the people I've met before, I've met them not on their farm, but this time I've met them on the farm, and you get a much better impression about their abilities, what they're all about, and their passion. And it's a passion that comes through, I love most.
Well, you have a great passion for the bloodstock industry and your racehorses, and it goes back to, you know, when you were with Prince Khaled Abdallah for Judd Monton and those days.
It goes back, I'm a bit older than that actually, it goes back even beyond that. It goes back to the early 70s when my mentor was a man called Keith Freeman, who actually had a lot to do with exporting horses to South Africa. Keith was an agent, and he sold horses like Jungle Cove to the Scott brothers, New South Wales, and several mares who've become foundation mares over here. And I was with Keith from 1974 and a partner in the business from about 77 to about 82 before I joined Judd. So that's when South Africa, all the names became part of my life. And then I had 20 years away from it when I was with Juddmont. We didn't have anything to do with South Africa, unfortunately. But I was always very aware of South Africa, because at that stage, you know, the horses like Hawaii were standing in Kentucky, and you know, I was aware of those names. So yes, it's always been there in my consciousness. Yeah,
well, it's fantastic. And of course, Badger's Bloodstock's been going for many years as well.
Well, we've been going since I left Juddmont. 2001 we started. My son Tom, who now drives it, he refers to me as the driver, but he drives it, and it's great to have my son and myself working together for 16, 17 years now. It's great.
I believe you originally trained as a chartered surveyor, but the bloodstock passion just took you.
Well, the bloodstock passion was there, and I desperately wanted to be a trainer, actually. And I said to my father, I want to be a trainer, and he said, well, your brother's a trainer already. He said, you can do what you like as soon as you get a qualification. And I said, well, what's a qualification? He said, you better find out. So I went off and did 5 or 6 years in chartered surveyors as a land agent, which actually was specialising in the agricultural side. So I actually learnt a lot about farming, and after all, raising horses is farming.
And you've obviously got a really good eye for a horse. You've been around the world, you've seen plenty of horses. What's it like coming to South Africa and looking at our yearlings?
Well, I love coming here, and the last 2 weeks has been wonderful, is seeing horses coming out of winter, but they've been raw. They come straight off the felt, straight out of paddocks, like the ones behind me. They haven't come in, they haven't been in boxes. These are raw animals, and they're healthy. They've been through a winter. They've got a big, thick coat, and I love the naturalness of it. And I think it's very important that the horses are brought up naturally, and you know they might be slightly lighter in condition than they would be back in Europe and America, where they might have been brought in every night, but they will, once the sun hits them, the good feed hits them, they're going to expand and grow massively.
Well, obviously you look at the pedigree and you know your South African bloodlines very well, but what do you look for in confirmation?
Well, this inspection is purely confirmation. I mean, there are pedigree experts who will say, well, this is the right pedigree for the sale, but confirmation, you just got to have the frame there and the correct legs. And personally, I buy horses normally I inspect horses normally to buy. And so I have certain things I love to see. I love to see a horse walking really well. I love to see a great depth of girth, a good laid back shoulder. But for a sale, you've also got to have them pretty correct in the front leg. And so myself and John and Kerry, we've been really sifting those horses which probably will not get a very good reception from vendors, from purchasers.
Yeah, you really do have to have a very careful eye, because obviously when they make it to the sales in January, they look a totally different horse. And as you said, they're walking and they're doing everything. But now they just look very rough and ready. And to pick out the horses now is very difficult. Yes and no, but you know, John and myself, we see horses at all various stages of their life, and it's not that much of a skill really. I mean, you've got to know how things are, but you know, the skill of seeing a good conformation in a small horse is the same as it is when they're fully grown. It's just a little bit more. Less, you know, the observation is a bit more difficult. Well, the South African horses certainly seem to be improving all the time, and we're competing now overseas, and we're doing that much better. And with the help of Adrian, Todd, and the protocol, we're hoping to get our horses moving, which is all great. And do you see a big difference in our horses over the years? I've seen a difference in the preparation for sales. You know, the preparation for sales when I first came here was pretty rough and ready. And I think that you've caught up internationally. Some of the big farms prepare them very well. Do I see a difference? I think that yes, I suppose the development. I think people are more aware of vitamins and those sort of things, and diet and feed. I think they probably are a little bit bigger and stronger than they used to be. But you know, forgetting that, you've got to remember that South Africa has been exporting great racehorses for a very long time. Going back to Keith Freeman. Keith Freeman took Colorado King to California in 1966, and I was very aware of that when you know, and also horses like Hawaii, and then you know, horse chestnut, and we've seen them all over. And London News was very important when he broke the ice in Hong Kong. You know, that's a big market for you in the future, and these are all historical moments which show that South Africa's a good foundation of great horses. I just wish you could get these quarantine restrictions lifted as soon as possible, because I know that the South African horses are as good as anyone in the world. And Badger, you know your bloodlines internationally and here in South Africa, and what's very interesting, we were talking offset a while ago about Justify. Well, Justify is very interesting for me from an international point of view, because Justify, he's a Triple Crown winner, and is not known probably very much in Australia, in South Africa, but Justify has 2 crosses of Hawaii, 5x6. Now this is South African blood through and through, and I think the South African, you know, is a very important part of international bloodlines, and I think that we should actually stress this to the rest of the world. Yeah, something to get really excited about. It's fantastic. I'm actually doing a little bit more research. I think also, I think Mr. Prospector and Seattle Slew also have antecedents in South Africa, and actually Justify's got 4 crosses of Mr. Prospector, so maybe even more of an influence in Justify's pedigree than I even thought. You've been attending the CTS Cape Premier sale for quite a few years. It's a fantastic sale, isn't it? It's very well done and very well attended by all accounts. First of all, it's unique. I mean, it's there in the middle of a beautiful city. It's amazingly, it's in this big conference centre, and you'd think that horses would be a bit excited. I've never known a quieter sales area. You go in there and you inspect the horses, big wide avenues, the horses are very quiet. The staff, I've got to come back to the staff. One thing has really struck me as I go around here, South Africa is blessed
with having a number of staff. In Europe and in Australia in particular, very short of staff. You've got plenty of staff, and some of the quality of the staff is excellent. I saw a boy the other day leading a horse for me yesterday, and he was world class. Really serious horseman, and I think Adrian actually has been responsible for quite a lot of training, and I think that's beginning to come through, and the stud masters have been great in coaching. And these boys are handling some pretty wild, raw yearlings, and I've been really impressed. They've done a great job.
Yeah, and it's a good walking surface in the convention centre as well, so you get to see them walk nicely.
Well, by that time, the boys had gotten well settled. They were used to each other, and the boys walked them well. And it's a good surface. It's well lit, and you can get around the horses very quickly as well. I mean, there's not a great number of horses to see, but if you want to see every horse, you can do it within a couple of days, no problem.
Well, I'm sure we're going to have a very good catalogue this year, and there looks to be lots of interest from international buyers once again.
I would hope so. Well, they'd be foolish not to come down here. The exchange rate is getting better and better for an international.
And what's lovely, it's close to the Met, and everyone can have a little bit of a holiday and go racing as well.
Perfect. I mean, the most beautiful city in the world. As you say, going to the Met on the Saturday is a great letdown for everyone. And you probably know England in winter can be quite cold, and it's a perfect time to get away and come down and get some warmth. And
it's proved a great sale so far. We've had a lot of feature winners and Grade 1 winners come out of it, so it's been a fabulous sale.
Well, if you've had a lot of group winners come out of it now, I can't see, having seen the horses I've seen now, I can't see why I can't continue, because I've seen some very nice horses.
That's great news, and you're nearly at the end of your inspections. You've pretty much been busy for 2 weeks.
Busy, but it's been a great pleasure. I mean, I've seen some wonderful parts of the world, and places I really want to come back to as well.
That's really great, and we look forward to seeing you at the sale in January. Safe journey home, and enjoy the rest of your inspections here in South Africa.
Thank you very much.
Ici, la police qui va enlever l'Arc de Triomphe, 5e victoire de la course pour Frankie Lettori.
Is storming home, one of the last possible gasp for the Challenger thriller.
What a finish to the Melbourne Cup. The Brave is under pressure when they turn in. It's been a relentless run cut. Who's going to be the last man standing?
Battling on too, then Wings of Eagles, Cliffs of Moa, Wings of Eagles swooping though, and Wings of Eagles get back to win.
His 3,000th winner.
Vodacom Durban July.
Gauteng Sansui Summer Cup.
Adrian Todd is making huge steps with the import and export protocol here in South Africa, and it was great to catch up with him at Kenilworth Racecourse earlier this week. This interview is brought to you by Global Logistics. I haven't spoken to Adrian Todd for quite some while about the import and export protocols here in South Africa, and it's going to be very interesting catching up with Adrian this morning to hear how far we've actually got with that progress. Adrian, lovely to have you on the show. It's a while since I've spoken to you. How are we getting on with the import and export protocols here in South Africa?
Well, things are going very well, Fee. We're in our audit process right now, and what happened and how it led to here was in 2013, as most people are aware, South Africa failed rather dismally, an EU audit. After the 2 years since the last case in the surveillance zone happened, we were eligible to try and get another audit. The EU have responded to that, so we're now officially in the process with a whole list of questions and evidence requests, etc. South Africa's now officially responded back to that, showing where we've upskilled things from the 2013 audit, and it's been a desktop audit process so far. Monday and Tuesday of this week, we had the Department of Agriculture down here with the team, and we signed off on the final submission to the EU to answer their last questions and requests for evidence. So that has just gone in. And now we find out whether they're going to be totally satisfied with the desktop system or whether they will want to do a physical audit as well. They'll probably want to do a physical audit, I would assume, and that will be early next year. I'm hoping that we may squeeze it in this year, but most likely it will be early next.
Well, you certainly have been working very hard on this project. You've done a lot of travelling, and of course you've got all the trainers and breeders, you've got all the vaccinations and the African horse sickness and disease really under control.
We believe we do. You know, it's we recognise the fact that it's been a bit of a effort from a lot of people, especially with compliance with some things that don't make people's lives easy. We know that. And we hope to be able to streamline and change those things, but at the moment, because South Africa failed that 2013 audit, we have to pass the audit under the existing regulations that are imposed upon us before we can consider making changes there. You can't negotiate from a position of weakness, and South Africa has to prove that we can fulfill all of the requirements before we can start renegotiating things that will hopefully make everybody's lives easier. So I'd like to thank everybody for their perseverance in some areas that sometimes do make a lot of extra work for you. But in order to get to the goal that we want to achieve here, it's been vital.
Well, you've certainly made a lot of progress since I last spoke to you, and of course you've also got Global Logistics on board as the shippers.
Yeah, and Global Logistics, I'd like to thank JJ for the idea of sponsoring this monthly update. I think it's very important, and we're going to continue to do that, to update people with what's going on, and that's something that JJ suggested, and I'm very grateful that he's come forward to do that. It's a good idea to keep everybody informed.
And a tricky question for you to answer, that there's a few people out there that are a little bit negative about exporting. I mean, what do you think of us losing a lot of our decent horses?
Look, Fee, I can understand what people are saying there, but I think it's very important to remember that our goal here is not simply export. Our goal is to create trade and put South Africa on the international platform for trade. And trade is a two-way street. What you're going to find is that some horses will leave. International buyers will buy yearlings, they will buy ready-to-run horses, they will buy horses that are already in training. Yes, so horses will leave, but as breeders and owners get to sell their horses overseas, and in many cases it'll be easier for them to travel overseas to race themselves as well, you'll see an influx of hard currency into the industry. That'll lead to breeders upgrading their broodmare bands, better stallions coming to South Africa, and two-way trade will also open the potential for horses to come down here to race, to internationalize our races. Knock-on effect from that, you create more international publicity for people, you attract international sponsors, so South Africa actually gets to be on the world stage. So yes, horses will go overseas, but it's not going to be that it's to the detriment of South African racing in the longer term. It will be putting South Africa on the stage, and our trainers will also be able to compete equally with international trainers at big races.
Yeah, it's positive marketing that we need.
Exactly, and now is the time that we really need to start creating the markets as well. That's something we're looking into as well now, making sure that the logistics work to get horses to the new markets, doing cost analysis on that so that when this opens, people will be able to obtain the information South Africa can deliver to you in this country in this time frame and at this cost.
Well, best of luck with all the meetings you've got ahead and all the hard work, and we'll look forward to speaking to you again, because we're going to be speaking to you once a month now, and we're going to get regular updates, which is going to be great for us all to hear and be on the show.
No, exactly, and I certainly can promise you that as it goes forward, this is the final drive here. You know, everybody needs to get on board, secure our funding going forward, get everything in line, and push it over the line finally once and for all.
Well, Adrian, it's been lovely chatting to you this morning. You've really made huge leaps in progress with this protocol, and I'm looking forward to catching up with you again at the end of next month. Adrian Todd was brought to us by Global Logistics this morning, and we will be catching up with Adrian once a month now. At the end of each month, we will be able to give you an update on how we're going with the important export protocols in South Africa. talking of stallions, we also get an update on this evening's show on how Royal Mo is doing. He seems to be settling in really well at Claverflay Stud.
As a racehorse, he ran a pair of seconds in his first 2 starts over sprints. He then broke his maiden when he first went over a mile. Straight out the maidens, he managed to reel off a group win over the mile as well. And then obviously big performance when he ran 3rd in that Group 1, the Derby.
Royal Mo, and here comes Gormley, followed by Iliad and Reach the World in Battle of Midway, trying to stave off the Moss pair. Royal Mo and Gormley battling strongly. Gormley looming into the lead now. Gormley takes the lead, and Gormley wins the Santa Anita Derby.
Last but not least on this evening's show, we take a look at our foal of the week, and I'd like to thank all the breeders for their wonderful pictures of their foals that they've been sending me, and I'm looking forward to a lot more over the next few weeks. Once again, we are featuring another of John Freeman's stallions on tonight's show, and tonight we have no other than Twice Over.
And it's Do It Again by a length and a half. Do It Again shakes the ground beneath him, and Do It Again has done it.
Twice Over joins a band of elite sires that have produced Durban Jalal winners. He is the first sire in over 30 years to get a 3-year-old winner of the Durban Jalal from his first crop. You have to go all the way back to the 1960s to find the likes of Colorado King and Naval Escort that fit that role. With only 1.5 crops racing, he is already the sire of 34 winners of 48 races and over 8 million rand in stakes earned.
Over the last 100, but Do It Again takes it up, and it's Do It Again to win it.
He is the leading second crop sire by stakes earned and by average earnings per runner. Twice Over, who was himself unbeaten in 2 starts at 2 years, got early 2-year-old winners like the seasonal Cape Breeders and KwaZulu-Natal Racing's champion 2-year-old Sand and Sea, winner of the Grade 1 gold medallion.
And Sand and Sea comes exploding into action. Sand and Sea to win, easing up and going away.
With the help of his other classic hopefuls Double Mint and Rock My Soul, Twice Over's own ability is very much in evidence. Twice Over stands at Klavervlei Stud as the property of a syndicate and is managed by Freeman Stallions.
That brings this week's show to a close. I hope you've enjoyed all our inserts and wonderful foal pictures. I hope you all have a fantastic week, and we look forward to seeing you here again next Sunday, where we have another jam-packed edition of Breeding to Win.